So Honey Don't is the latest of my disappointments. Luckily this time I kind of saw it coming, so I'm sort of learning from my lessons, but all I can think about with this movie is all of the different more productive things I could have been doing instead of watching this movie. Like I could have been studying like analog electrical engineering or watching actual good like classic films. Apparently I need to watch Dead Poets Society. But instead I watched this movie and thank God it was only 90 minutes. I don't know if I could have watched like I've never walked out of a movie theater while doing reviews for this channel, and I actually don't think I've ever walked out of a movie theater before, but this one I really wanted to walk out of this movie theater. Basically, the movie is just a live action feminist lesbian porno about a murder mystery. The plot is terrible, and in between scenes is just straight up sex. A lot of sex. I mean, I'm sure there's movies that have more sex than this movie, but for how rubbery bland the story is, it's a lot of sex. I will be talking spoilers in this review, but to be honest, I think you should just hear me out on this one. I usually don't say that, but I think you'll be thanking me by the end of this one, unless you're in like the small minority of people that this movie targets, in which case, skip to the timestamp for my final verdict. The movie follows a private investigator named Honey who gets a call from this woman who's paranoid and fears for her life and is killed the very next day in a car crash, but her injuries aren't exactly consistent with a traffic fatality, so both the police and Honey investigate her death as a homicide. Why is Honey investigating this murder when she has nothing to gain from it, especially financially, as she isn't subsidized by anyone except for her clients that are alive? I mean, maybe you could just stop asking questions about it and eat up the slop that's being served to you. But seriously, who's gonna be the one to write her a check when she cracks this case? The victim's parents are in debt, and the only people who want to solve this murder are the police. And from what I can tell, Honey's private investigator business isn't exactly booming, so it's not like she can really just do charity work. Anyways, the leads are leading to this church called the Four-Way Temple, run by Reverend Drew Devlin, who's this corrupt preacher. Daring today, aren't we, Hollywood? The church is basically a cult-like drug trafficking organization that works with other crime organizations around the world, apparently, and the ministry is just a front for all of it. You get the idea. There's two main problems with this plot so far. Number one, I just don't give a flying fuck about this girl that got murdered. She never appears alive in this movie. She's just super fucking dead. And if I'm not mistaken, they don't give us like any background on her at all other than she was a member of the Four-Way Temple. And second, the writers deliberately make this case really boring. Every single lead that Honey chases just dries up like that. She goes to the cops, they have nothing. She goes to this woman's work, they have nothing. She goes to her parents, they have nothing except for like a robe that leads Honey to the Four-Way Temple, but like we already fucking knew that she was a member of the Four-Way Temple from the opening scene of the movie. So what do they do to fix this? They derail the entire plot by having Honey's niece get kidnapped, so forget about the dead girl, Honey's looking for her niece now. They try to make it kind of interesting by having this old creepy guy do and say weird things to Honey's niece before she gets kidnapped, and that makes him look kind of suspicious, but it just ends up being Honey's dad and her niece's granddad. She just didn't know who he was, so it was like barely interesting, but it was just a dead end in the plot. So the way the movie ends is like the most cookie cutter murder mystery where the culprit is so obvious from the very beginning, and then they have to throw together some lame and contrived twist about how it was actually the last person you expected. It ends up being this cop that Honey had a fling with, and the realization that Honey has, the thing that occurs to her that indicates that this cop is the culprit, is that she would have been in the same vicinity as her niece the night she went missing. This is like Christopher Nolan level of writing. I'm at least glad that Rotten Tomatoes had the balls to call this movie out for what it really is. In the scene where Honey confronts this chick is so badly done. The acting and direction is so clumsy. You can practically see the painter's tape that the director put on the floor for the actors to stand on. Anyways, Honey finds her niece. This cop ends up being the one who murdered the girl at the beginning of the movie. What motive would she have for murdering this completely random girl? She's a serial killer. We'll go with that, I guess. The worst part about this movie is easily Honey. She has to be one of the most boring protagonists I've ever seen on screen, which is kind of hard to say because, I mean, if a character is really boring, how am I going to remember how boring they are? But she is so boring that I will actually remember it. She has no character traits other than the fact that she's lesbian. That's the only thing that makes her unique. And honestly, it's not even really that unique anymore since the media is constantly trying to waterboard us with the LGBT stuff. We get no background for her character other than she had a vaguely less than ideal childhood. She has a sister with an ass load of kids, and she just never told her father that she liked the girls. That's all we get. Her personality is non existent. She always talks professionally. She doesn't always have the most professional things to say, but she always talks in the same exact tone for every scene of the movie. She always has this like half smile, unless she's like beaming at another pretty girl or something. Her eyebrows seem like they're glued in place. She refuses to have any facial expressions at all. She's so boring, dude. She has no flaws at all, other than she's like a heavy drinker, but that's played off more as a joke than a character flaw. Otherwise, she always makes the morally correct decision, at least from the writer's perspective, in just about every scene. I guess you could call her a Mary Sue. And that's just boring. It really is. The politics in this movie aren't that blatant, but they definitely lean into it despite how subtle it comes off. Of course, there's the mocking of Christianity. And I have no problem if someone wants to write a good story about a corrupt church, but I start to have problems with it when it's the only thing that Hollywood has to say about Christianity. Immaculate, Death of a Unicorn, The Hunting Wives, just to name a few things I've seen in the last year that have mocked Christianity in some way. In the last 5 years, I don't think I've seen Hollywood give any grace to Christianity unless it was like Pureflix or Angel Studios or something. On the other hand, in the last 5 years, I don't think I've seen any other religion get criticized by Hollywood in any real way. Like, you'll never see a corrupt mosque in a movie. You'll never see a corrupt synagogue, although that might actually change pretty soon now that Hollywood and the left decided that they hate Jewish people simply because they're just not idiots with their money. They have decent morals that set them up for success in life, and somehow that makes them evil, I guess. And I'm not saying churches like this don't exist. I mean, a crime organization is a bit of a stretch, but these aggressive churches do exist. But I'm just trying to say, like, they exist probably about as much as terrorist organizations exist in mosques, which is not that much, I would think. Then you have the feminist stuff that is literally ruining Hollywood, where writers will alienate as much as half of their audience, and then the less it works, the more they will double down on it for some reason. This is the kind of stuff that will genuinely kill the film industry if it keeps going on like this, I promise. Every single man in this movie gets humiliated, emasculated, or just made out to be a bad person. Every single one of them. The cop who works with Honey can't take a hint. He always gets rejected by her. We already talked about the preacher. There's a gay couple, and then Honey's father is supposed to be like this piece of shit, and then Honey's niece's boyfriend is this pussy MAGA supporter. Then of course you have the lesbian stuff. It's just so annoying to me how Hollywood refuses to see the beauty in art, and then when they actually put beautiful women into their movies, she's either so much of a girl boss that she might as well just be a man, or they just make her a lesbian. This movie really dances on that line of like soft porn and then just straight up porn. It's just uncomfortable. The worst scene of this movie is when Honey goes to this bar where there's a bunch of people and even a few cops who are wearing their uniforms, which would never happen in this day and age. She sits down at the bar with the serial killer lady cop that she only met just that day. She takes her hand and just shoves it inside of herself and gets finger blasted in a bar with, no joke, probably up to like 100 people inside. There's people sitting next to them. The bartender comes up and asks them a question. I couldn't believe what I was watching. This is not what normal people want to see when they go to the movies. But that was Honey Don't. For my final verdict, I'll be ruling against this movie at 24%. I'm actually really shocked that this movie was directed by a man. I thought for sure it would have been a woman, like Greta Gerwig or something. I think one of the co-writers was a woman, but still. This was one of the biggest wastes of time of my life. It was frustratingly boring. Unless you're like a feminist lesbian who has traumatic memories of your parents taking you to church as a kid, then maybe this is the movie for you, but otherwise I'm sure you could watch something much shorter and to the point. But that's all I got for this week. If you enjoyed my review, please consider dropping a like and hitting subscribe, but that's all for this case. This court is adjourned.